the head of business development at Alphanumeric Systems, and we have a presentation today with our partner Windstream hosted, so we want to thank you for coming. I also have a unique perspective when it comes to these kinds of conferences because I'm also a senior city councilman in the town of Morrisville near the airport. And I just want to thank, I know how hard people in the city governments, the local governments work to keep towns running and provide services to citizens. And I also know how hard people in the technology industry work to keep solutions out there in front of us. So I think it's just really refreshing to come to these kinds of conferences. I've really enjoyed it. So today we are here with, I got Terry French with me, he's our state and local exec, and also Richard Lounsbury, who's going to be presenting. And Richard is a business development and sales executive at Windstream Hosted Solutions. So they're our partner at Alphanumeric. And so we're going to be talking a little bit today about value in the cloud and some of the different experiences we're seeing from the customer side. And so I'm now going to hand over to Rich for this afternoon session. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm a senior solutions consultant with Windstream Hosted Solutions, and I support actually a lot of partners like Alphanumeric. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about the cloud and Windstream. And then this is actually new material. This is actually a study done by Oxford Economics, where they surveyed multiple customers and multiple companies about cloud computing and their cloud computing strategies, and I wanted to kind of share that with you. I also have what looks like nice earrings, but they're actually keychains, little flashlights, for anybody who has any questions or kind of comments or kind of any input. We're kind of giving these away as well too. So, Hosted Solutions has been a managed service provider that's owned and operated data centers for 13 years. So before the cloud was cloud. And the way we got started was actually we started buying up bankrupt data centers right after the dot-com bubble burst. So we were able to get really great deals on data centers. The owner of the company recognized that people are always going to need data centers, and was able to get them really cheaply because there was a whole bunch of customers that moved into these data centers and people built these data centers up, and then they stopped paying their bills. So they were able to get the data centers really inexpensively, and then the model was to build really, really good data centers. So they're ballistics rated, hurricane rated, tier 3+ type facilities, and then because we're a managed service provider, make sure we maximize revenue per square foot in those data centers. And when you do cloud computing environments, you're actually providing a very dense per square footage revenue per data center. And then on the flip side, from the customer standpoint, you get the most economies of scale in that type of environment, because when it comes to our data centers, when it comes to our managed services, when it comes to the equipment that run these environments, the more companies that are splitting the costs and the more that they're willing to split the costs, the lower the costs come down. And then our parent company, Windstream, is a Fortune 500 company. We have over $6 billion in revenue. So we're the 4th largest telecommunications company in the country. And we have over 2,500 customers. Has anybody worked with Windstream at all? Okay. Mainly from the carrier side or anything from the data center side? Okay. Yeah, so the telecommunications business is very different from the data center business within Windstream. On the data center side, we kind of cater ourselves towards companies. If their servers or applications go down, it's going to cause them a lot of pain. So we're able to set up environments for customers very quickly, and in the case of cloud computing environments, they're able to self-provision environments very quickly. We also offer very high SLAs, so anything around the data center, around the network out of the data center, so all the space, power, cooling, network, it's all 100% uptime SLA. And then our support is also a guaranteed less than 15-minute support time for any critical calls. So that's very different from any experience that I'm sure any of you guys have had with any carrier out there. And so we do kind of separate the businesses, and then also when it comes to the data centers, they're also, even though we're owned by a large carrier, they're carrier neutral. So we have 7 data centers in the state of North Carolina, and any carrier you can think of is pretty much connected to these data centers. And then this is our solution stack. So at the bottom, it's these high availability internet data centers, and we allow customers to bring in their own equipment, and then we can provide equipment in a dedicated or private cloud model or public cloud model, and we can manage as much of it as the customer wants, or customers or our partners can manage as much of it, as they want. We can provide internet, MPLS, load balancing, managed switches, content distributed networking, and web content acceleration, NAS services, SAN services, data deduplication, replication, and backups. We do a lot on the security side with managed firewalls, both traditional firewalls and application-based firewalls, intrusion detection systems and services, log security management, DDoS mitigation services, and then we can be full OS administrators for Windows, Unix, Linux, Solaris, which includes patch management and then also monitoring of applications and processes on the servers. And for a lot of customers, we can provide Oracle DBA services. We also do middleware support, WebSphere, JBoss, WebLogic. And then the fastest growing products in Windstream are the ones that leverage the multi-tenant cloud computing environment. And that includes DR as a service as well too. So whenever you're doing DR, kind of a sweet spot for us is that we can manage the whole process. So we can provide the network, the replication technology, the storage in the data center, and instead of having to buy compute resources, you're just really reserving compute resources in our data center should you need to run or us to run your environment. And then this is just a map of our data centers around the country. They're mainly broken into 2 classes. There's our cloud-enabled data centers and then our enterprise class data centers. And then this is kind of getting into what I wanted to talk about as far as the study. So the study was done by Oxford Economics, and it was a national survey of 350 executives that showed that cloud computing is fundamentally altering business processes and changing the way organizations interact with their customers, partners, and employees. Most said that cloud is the key to their innovation strategy and part of their long-range vision. And it was actually over half that said that the cloud is the key to their innovation strategy, and then over 2/3 expected the cloud to be part of their long-range vision and strategy in 2 years. So not only is it a big part now, but it's also going to project to be a much bigger part, in 2 years. Also, the study showed that new lines of businesses and new services are seen as key goals enabled by cloud and cloud services. And within 2 years, the use of clouds to drive entry into new markets and launching new applications will increase by over 50%. And then what clouds are being used for 63% collaboration amongst business units, so inside companies, and then 59% was for collaboration with partners or external people. And then 55% was being used for innovation, and then 44% was being used to improve customer service. And this, because for the longest time, a lot of people in my mind and a lot of vendors were always promoting the ROI and the cost savings from going to cloud computing environments, but the increased efficiency was only 1/3 of the reason for people going to cloud computing environments. And the same thing for operational savings. It was only about 1/3. And then other big drivers were time to market. So if you need to launch applications, you can launch applications very, very quickly in cloud computing environments. And also the agility to basically scale up, scale down that cloud and cloud computing environments provide as well too were the other big drivers. And then there's been confusion about cloud migrations. So a big part of my job and what I've been doing for the past 5 years has been sitting down with customers, going through, doing an analysis of their application, seeing what makes sense to move to the cloud, what the performance requirements are, what the SLA requirements are, what customers want to protect themselves against, and doing all these designs to show them what it would look like in a cloud computing environment, and then showing them what it would look like and how they would migrate. And this is also what a lot of our partners are doing for their customers as well too, when they're talking to them about our cloud and cloud computing environments. So based on the study, most companies lacked a clear strategy for execution and moving to cloud computing environments, and many didn't know where to begin the transition, and only 50% of organizations had a clear understanding of even the options that were available in the cloud. Do you guys have any questions so far? I got a lot of these keychains that people want.
What are some examples of the collaboration, internal and external collaboration for teams?
So, well, one thing it seems like everybody's doing, everybody's getting out of the email business. So we offer a hosted exchange, there's Google Docs, there's Office 365. We feel like we have some compelling reasons to go with our hosted exchange. It's mainly around the free migration and the level of support that you get. And then when you do that, then you also get into hosted link, hosted SharePoint, so those type of applications. Windstream and a lot of other providers also offer unified communications as a service, as well too. So it's like a lot of those type of applications. And you can also view even the poster child, like Salesforce.com for CRM. Within CRM packages, they're not only used for communicating to, with customers, but it's also used internally to see who's talking to customers and for the business to be able to look and see when people have been contacted and things like that. So when you're enabling things and putting things in the cloud and then enabling many different people to view it both internally and externally and setting up rules for that, that's a lot of the, the collaboration, piece. And businesses and companies had to do this themselves, and everybody's kind of getting away, from doing that. Actually, I want to read the full quote that's actually up here. So this is from Jim Albert, the CIO at Bankers Financial Corporation. And he wrote or said, "I don't want my PBX in my building. I don't want my data center in my building. I don't want my applications sitting on servers in my building. And there's just no doubt in my mind that a cloud solutions provider designated to be an A-grade company is going to be far more secure than my own systems are." And one more thing he added, "I don't want to put a new system that will soon be thought of as another legacy system." So one of the things I explain and go through, especially with a lot of financial folks, if you look at a typical IT budget, you have a big capital expenditure, and then you have your operating and support costs. And then you usually have, and sometimes unexpected, another big capital expenditure, and then you have your support costs. With cloud computing environments, it's a very steady operational cost. You're basically paying for what you use when you use it. And then to give an example of how fast the technology changes, our first multi-tenant cloud computing environment we built in 2009. That's had major upgrades 5 times without customers, even knowing it. So that's firmware upgrades, processor upgrades, storage upgrades that customers don't even see to make sure the technology and the performance stays current. So some of the challenges that the survey said were technology challenges, industry consolidation, increasing regulatory requirements, economic uncertainty, greater supply chain compatibility, increased global competition, compliance, customer empowerment, and product obsolescence. And all these things are really addressed with cloud computing environments. And then as far as the cloud being critical to business strategies, I'll kind of start with what was viewed as the most important, and that's actually that cloud is very important for the long-range vision for business owners. And that was 55% today and growing to 71% within 2 years. And then the move to more geographic locations or online internet ubiquity, being able to move to that was second. And then third was kind of a tie. To innovate using cloud services really for more short-term strategy instead of a long-term strategy. And then also the idea of a lot of line of businesses also being able to implement cloud technologies. So traditionally, lines of businesses would go to their IT department, and if the IT department had the resources and that division had the budget, they could implement different pieces of technology. But more and more different heads of lines of businesses are just going to cloud providers for applications and applications they need to run, their line of business. And then also the cloud is changing, actually, or remaking the IT function within organizations. So from doing this for a while, working with IT professionals and working with business owners, they often don't want to get involved with all the data center, get involved with all the air conditioning, diesel generators. They usually don't want to be bothered with hardware management. It's usually when they get into the applications, that's when they're more interested in providing the support, and then also being able to focus on the end user support and not having to worry about back-end infrastructure. It's a very easy conversation talking to a lot of business owners or executives on doing things that aren't in their core business. So do you want to own data centers? Do you want to have to support hardware and infrastructure? Do you want to have to pay for upgrades? Or do you want to just pay for what you need as you need it in more of a utility model? I've even heard people describe it when it comes to data centers as like in the early 1900s, if you had a factory, you had to build your own power plant. Now nobody builds their own power plant. They just plug into the power grid and pay for the power they need it in non-demand fashion. And that's what's happening kind of with data centers now. People aren't really building data centers. They're using the internet and then getting processing power, memory, storage, applications, all really from the cloud. And actually, the least important was actually now the ROI and cost savings of going to cloud environments. That was only 32% of the folks surveyed and growing to 40% in 2 years. But this is an example of the ROI, and it really is pretty compelling. So in a co-location or on-prem data center, getting redundant internet carriers, redundant firewalls, redundant switches, getting 4 physical servers, buying the VMware or hypervisor, using a shared SAN, a couple dedicated servers for databases, the backup software and backup infrastructure and backup storage. The cost for this one particular customer, it was a $218,000 CapEx expenditure, and then the operating cost was $35,416 a month. Going to a dedicated hosted model or a private cloud environment, it was $7,500, And then going to a multi-tenant environment, it was only 3,500. And then the difference is, with all these, is how much is that customer, or how much is that company willing to share and willing to share the costs. I was in a presentation with Gardner Group about 3 years ago, and they said like a Fortune 500 to Fortune 1000 company spent about 13 to 15% of their total revenue on IT, where a Fortune 50 company only spent about 3%. And then how does the SMB space, how do all those larger companies, but aren't huge companies, how do they get the same efficiencies? And really that's using and outsourcing to cloud providers that focus on the exact pieces of technology that they're interested in. And then this is basically what were the biggest concerns by vertical. So what I'd like to look at with this, especially like with the government and healthcare and education, what their concerns were compared to the average for all sectors. What have you guys seen, or what are your guys' view? Have any of you guys used any cloud-based services?
I tried to do it several years ago, and I was about 4 or 5 years ago. I went with 4 different companies, sent all their SLAs to Shannon, the School of Government, and she shot them up.
Yeah.
It was just, they got hammered with the security concerns, the privacy, the regulation. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we saw with statutory regulation that we had to follow, and we just couldn't validate it, and not put it in our internal lawyers, and they destroyed it too. We just couldn't make it work.
Yep, and so the main thing, the concern was more about security. And, yep. One of the things we do as a service provider, and we don't charge for it, we have a compliance group. So anybody who's using our services, we'll go through and do audits and all that type of stuff for them. We also are audited by a third party, so everything that we're saying that we're doing for customers, we can provide that audit that is audited by a third party. We do have PCI compliance, HIPAA compliance, all those things already. And then we also automate everything for our customers around compliance. And that's probably, and also too, when you read through that, it still is the biggest concerns around security. But if there's also a big argument that depending on the cloud provider that you go to, that it's actually more secure, because we have to meet the regulatory requirements of many different industries, and we also have very set procedures and processes that are audited. And if you're doing it internally, you're only as good as your own internal procedures and processes, in teams. But it is a control thing. It is a form of outsourcing. And if you're not comfortable with outsourcing, it's not going to be. Did you get one of these?
No, and I'm not trying to.
Yeah, no, I know.
Devil's advocate, but especially in that
Yeah,
nation.
no, this is good.
For us, we looked initially just getting rev exchange, like you said, throwing that out there, something I didn't want to deal with, I wanted to throw it, somebody else not to worry about it. But in your slide, something like voice, I would never be comfortable outsourcing. I wouldn't be comfortable putting my voice servers in a cloud somewhere.
Yep.
Because of quality, I would have concerns with quality of service across the organization. And so if I've got a UCS chassis with voice blades sitting in there, I could just easily throw a couple more blades in and run my whole data center, because there's a cost for running that chassis, there's a cost for the switch for the firewall that I gotta have to maintain anyway. I'm doing all that. My concern is more about business continuity, disaster recovery, and how can I replicate my critical servers of data to a data center. And then when you start looking at, for me, and from the problem we've had, has always been the bandwidth between us and the facility. Not the facility cost, not the co-location cost. It's the fact that I've got a 10 gig pipe to my authority-owned VR facility, and if I try to put in a 10 gig pipe to your facility, I'm going to be spending thousands of months to try to replicate that bandwidth.
Yep.
And it's not cost effective, and that's where I've always had. And I would love to get it outside of our environment.
Yeah, the good thing from our perspective is we can do that with being a large carrier. The bad side of that is if you're getting, you need that much bandwidth for replication, it's not, it's not
42 plus terabytes of data. We're doing SRM, between SAMs. I mean, we're replicating everything. Because some of our servers, I'm with the utility company.
Yep.
So our SCADA servers run, we have 5 plants, water and sewer plants, and they literally run the plants. So if the primary goes down at the facility, it's relying on our backup VM and our data center and then our secondary VR facility to run those entire plants. They don't have the staff to run without it. So, that kind of data, those applications we can't lose access to those. So, having that pipe to make sure they're replicated in real time on a daily basis, it's hard to justify. That's a pretty bad trouble.
Yeah, and we do that all the time. We haven't done it a lot for utility companies, because utility companies are a little bit different than they seem, because they're regulated, so they like to spend money on capital expenditures. But we do a lot with companies that provide software applications for utility companies. So we do a lot with like the Itrons and the Senses, where we provide their whole back-end infrastructure. They put their software on it and they're selling it to, to utility company. And again, it's a form of outsourcing. So if you were to talk to the executives at the utility company, like, do you want to be in the data center business? No. Do you want to manage it? The answer is probably no. But there's already been a huge investment, and you're already used to doing it. And that's the whole cloud migration strategy. And it may not make sense for a while. And also, too, it may be a strategy where you just move things, one at a time. And you brought up, you try to present it with just email, which is something that's very easy, to do and to outsource. And we have two cloud-based solutions for that. We have the hosted Exchange, which is a direct replacement. We also have a cloud-based unified email management platform that addresses all the shortcomings of the Exchange system. So if you run it on-prem, if you use Office 365 or you use our hosted Exchange, it provides business continuity. So if your email system goes down, you're still able to send and receive emails from the unified email management platform. It's also an unlimited email archive as well too. So people deleting emails and stuff like that, it never gets deleted from the archive. You can use a lot less storage on your Exchange system, and it's a lot less that you need to back up because it's already in the archive. And it also takes care of all the security, so all the antivirus, anti-spam, anti-phishing, as well too. So that could even be a way that you start to, look at different cloud applications. But if the business or the company is not comfortable with outsourcing, cloud is not going to be, an option. Companies that are used to doing it and want to do it themselves are going to be the last adopters. And I'm assuming they will adopt it, but they may never. They may always want to do stuff internally. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to relate. Our first experience with the cloud type app, we had a company offer us services, and this was an application run on the Amazon cloud. Mm-hmm. And one of the problems that I ran into, we're a shop that has software developers. That's probably unusual in small government, but we have probably 10 or 12 developers. So we know web apps pretty well. We write them all the time. And one of the problems that I had with it is just that now I'm dealing with a company that's running a web app, an app, on something that I can't get to and I can't see, and I just got to take their word that they wrote it right and that they installed and configured IIS right. I mean, it's just amazing how many companies sell web apps and they don't know how to configure IIS. It's just astounding. And that's I think we'll end up going there. I like the whole idea of the cloud. I see a lot of benefits of it, but from a security concerns, the apps themselves, and how do you get that assurance that you don't have some pile of garbage like this one? I mean, it had cross-site scripting, it had SQL injection, it had driver's licenses in it, and I was logged in as a Gaston County user, and I was looking at driver's licenses for people from Durham. Was very, very simple thing. So how do you, is there something built into your services that audits this stuff? I mean, that helps these companies? Because, these guys are like, hey, we built an app, we put it up on the cloud services, we're gold. And what they really have is a piece of garbage.
And that gets into what we get into all the time is the strategy, and how you, what happens. So security is definitely like a layered, approach. So when you even buy a server, like, is it secure? Depends on how you configure it, right? So in the case of like the web servers, we could provide the backups, we can provide the infrastructure, we can provide the operating system, but it's actually the company that configures it is the one that also sets up security parameters. On top of that, there's a lot of customers who will subscribe to security services that we provide that are separate from that application that they've put on there. So log security management, so it's a separate appliance that all the logs get written to. And then there's a security team that looks at those logs for vulnerability. Because if anybody hacks into a server, when they leave, they're erasing the logs, but you can't erase them from a third-party appliance. Then there's also the intrusion detection systems and port scans, and then application-based firewalls as well too, which a lot of these aren't by default. Customers need to subscribe to these security services. So just because you put something in the cloud doesn't mean it's secure. It's how is it encrypted? What are the security measures in place? When we have customers, because anytime a customer comes on board with us, I'm part of the team that works on the design and the solution. We present that solution to our operations team that reviews it and says, yes, we're able to support it and can configure it. So when they see that order, they've already kind of blessed it. But then the customer fills out forms on how they want stuff configured. So maybe it's information like that, driver's license and stuff like that, and the customer lets us know that, and the team might be like, sure you don't want to check off that box to encrypt it, and does it need to be encrypted at rest or encrypted in flight? But if they say, no, we don't need it encrypted, it's not going to be encrypted on the server. Oh no, we can just send it out over the internet, we don't need a tunnel or SSL or any type of encryption. It's like, all right. So it's not by default that everything is secure. There needs to be a security, and we can help with it, but customers will tell us how they want stuff configured, and we configure it that way. So it's just kind of a simple analogy of like basically, buying a server, is it secure? And it's like, it depends on how it's configured. Go ahead.
You mentioned Office 365. How do you, it seems to me that, obviously you guys have been doing email in the cloud probably before Office 365 came out. Now that Microsoft is doing that, did you just mention that? That seems to me like you're going to have to do one or the other. But you said something about something with, what can y'all do with in combination with Office 365?
That's the unified email management platform. And we've done this with quite a few customers with Alphanumeric, because we don't sell Office 365, but Alphanumeric is a partner of ours who does. And when we sell directly, Hosted Exchange will often sell our unified email management platform with that. And Alphanumeric, sometimes for customers who have gone to or have Office 365, they'll use our unified email management platform as well. And again, the way to think of it is it's a non-Microsoft-based product, and it's a cloud-based product, but it was originally built before Office 365 and before a lot of people doing Hosted Exchange, but it was built for on-prem Hosted Exchange and addressing issues people have with it. So if people had issues with uptime, or had problems with the replication, or weren't doing replication between different Exchange servers, it provided business continuity. If they were running out of space or having problems with storage, it's an unlimited email archive. If they're having problems with security, it provides all the security around the email platform as well too. So we used that platform for the longest time by just asking customers, hey, how's your email going? Do you have any issues? And as soon as they said, oh, we got an issue, it's like, oh yeah, we got this cloud-based platform that addresses it. And when we were doing that, the Exchange platforms were almost always on site somewhere. And then the next step was people would move phone systems, they'd move their Exchange, they'd move their other applications to our infrastructure and our data center. And then now we have people that are like, I don't even want to manage the Exchange anymore. And then that's when we go to like an Office 365 or like our hosted Exchange.
We're seeing, and I'll just
Yeah, go ahead.
So what we're seeing is, Alphanumeric has a unique perspective because I don't know how many of you heard of Alphanumeric before this. We've been around for a long time, over 32 years. And 5 years ago, 85% of our business was hardware, and today 85 to 90% is services. So even we're seeing, we also changed a lot. We're global now, so we have offices in Barcelona, Montreal, United Kingdom. But within state and local government, we see it being an exciting time, with tools out there for things like Office 365. And a lot of times we'll go in a consultative role with our partners and actually work through some of the concerns, which are normal concerns: security, how do I know it's going to work? Is it really the safe route to go? But we're seeing even our VP of Sales and Marketing, Global Sales and Marketing, Steve Chase. The irony is, he built a whole business selling hardware, but whenever he's within front of the customer, he's talking about the benefits of IT as a service, infrastructure as a service. So, particularly with the smaller local governments, which we see, which in today's economy, everyone's challenged with where's the money coming from. Everyone's cutting budgets, and everybody's having to do more with less. I'm having to find that in my policy public figure hat. How do you do more with less? So I just want to throw that out there. I think it's an interesting evolution, but it's an evolution that doesn't come with a set of challenges. And the other thing is, it's not a cookie cutter model, one size fits all. There may be certain things that would be better to move to the cloud than others. But sometimes it's coming in and coming up with a plan on how we make that work.
Yeah, and then actually, this is kind of the next slide that kind of leads into what you were talking about. Still, the biggest concern, was around security. And one of the interesting things too around the survey, the bigger the company was, the less cost conscious they were in moving to cloud computing environments. And then one of the more critical things about moving to cloud computing environments was actually organizational resistance, or user resistance is very, very low, to these type of environments. One of the things that's kind of a little bit unique when we're talking about, to Steve brought up budgets. Our parent company, Windstream, when it comes to the network side, has a little bit of kind of like a profit sharing model. We have, it's called Equipment for Services. Have any of you guys heard of that at all? Basically, if you guys get like an MPLS network or a lot of network connectivity from us, and we end up doing 36, 60-month contract, what Windstream will do is they will do kind of like a profit sharing. They'll look at kind of the profit that's in there, and as long as it doesn't float, you can't drive it or you can't fly it, they will use some of that to pay for capital expenditures that companies need. So right now on the telecom side, renegotiating contracts is very favorable to to companies, but you can usually get more bandwidth, pay the same price, and have Windstream fund projects for stuff on the network side. So that's just kind of a unique program too that we have in the industry that's kind of separate from all the cloud and and data center stuff. Does anybody else have any other questions? Does anybody else want a keychain or a light?
I do have a question.
Yep.
About you talked about Exchange, hosted services.
Yep.
What other services do you offer with Exchange, like reporting or archiving, how long you can archive,
Yep.
versus specifics?
Yeah, so with our hosted exchange, we have two products, there's the standard and the advanced. The standard has an unlimited email mailbox. We will do the migration for customers for free, just for signing up for the service. We offer a 99.99% uptime SLA. It's a 100% uptime if they get the unified email management platform. Because we're coming at it from a service provider standpoint, our hold times for any customer support calls are guaranteed to be less than 60 seconds. So we have a lot of advantages from the hosted exchange side versus like an Office 365. Now, when you get the advanced, then you're also getting hosted SharePoint and hosted Link with the hosted exchange product. And then we have a lot of customers who also will subscribe as well to our unified communications as a service platform, where we, with that product on the back end, it's actually in our data centers. We're hosting either ShoreTel, MyTel, or via unified communication or Cisco unified communications platform. We also offer our own phone system that we manufacture called Allworks. And the Allworks system, we have an attractive way of bundling that, whether it's in our data center or at a customer prem, where we'll include everything that the customer needs, the SIP trunks, the maintenance, the support, the phone system, all on their phone bill.
That Allworks phone is also downstairs.
Yep. Yeah, and then there's versions that run on smartphones and tablets and all that as well too. So, any other questions? Yeah, we're getting done, I think, like 5 minutes early. Good.
Well, we want to thank you for coming today. One of the things we're doing at Alphanumeric is we're doing what we call executive roadshow around the state. We're basically going out and talking about some of the different trends we're seeing and just have an open conversation with other clients that we work with. So we'd love to get your information. So Terry's over here, but exchange business cards, that'd be great. Shoot you out an email and get together in the year. So thanks for coming. We hope this has been informative. Okay.
Yeah, and just what I sent out, it's very, very thorough in what they did in their, their survey of the 350 customers around the country. And it shows too in there the breakdown, and they did it pretty much evenly by vertical. So I think it was like 18% of the respondents were a SLED respondents as well. But I thought this was something that, it was interesting to me from doing this for a long time, getting some validation from a survey from a third party. And it kind of enlightened me to why things were happening the way I've seen them, happen in the industry. I want to thank you guys for your time.